Good afternoon, everyone. When I was a teenager, my favorite book series was called Choose Your Own Adventure. In these books, the reader gets to make the choices for the characters. Do you choose to slay the dragon? Turn to page 61. Or do you run in the other direction for help? Turn to page 35. And if you run for help, do you choose to get in a boat and cross the ocean? Turn to page 102. Or do you choose to take the high road and then take advantage of the first opportunity you come to? Turn to page 93. I often think about the Choose Your Own Adventure series in the work that I do in youth economic development. There's 3 other numbers that I think about as well. The first is 1.8 billion. Do you know what that number represents? It represents the number of young people aged 15 to 24 on this planet right now, and it's growing. And this is the largest youth population that the planet Earth has ever seen at any one time. And when we think about these 1.8 billion young people, it's very important to ask ourselves, do they have the skills and knowledge and opportunities to make decisions that will lead to the futures that they want? Are they having the opportunities to really choose their own adventures? My adventure that leads me to being up here today began in 1997 when I went to South Africa with a backpack to learn more about how to create economic opportunities for low-income people. And when I was there, I had the privilege of working with both adults and with children and youth in the school system. And the adults who I was working with had come from rural areas and flooded into these urban cities, looking for work, looking to make more money to be able to feed their families, clothe them, be able to create more opportunities like giving a decent education to their children. And when they arrived in these cities that they had hoped would be paved with gold, they found that they were often worse off than they had been in their rural communities. Because not only did they not have the support systems of their home communities, they did not have the skills that employers were looking for in the cities. So they were living in slums in terrible conditions, often hardly able to eat 3 meals a day. At the same time, and perhaps building more optimism, was the chance that I had to work in the school systems with the goal of bringing entrepreneurship education and life skills and creative thinking and problem solving into the school systems. And this juxtaposition of working with young people to be able to provide them with these key life skills, and also working with adults and seeing what happened if young people were not getting these opportunities, stared me very starkly in the face. When I moved back to my home country, to Canada, 2 years later, I started a social enterprise called Making Sense International, with the goal of giving young people the skills and education, the support systems, and the resources that they needed in order to be able to build the kinds of mindsets and skill sets needed to create livelihood opportunities for themselves. So what does it matter whether young people have access to these kinds of skills, support systems, and resources or not? Well, travel back with me to South Africa. Travel back with me 5 years ago. South Africa is a country where 60% of the population is under the age of 30, and where 75% of young people are unemployed. Now, when you think about that many young people, about their vibrancy and about their intelligence and about their drive and passion, what do you see? Do you see a sort of a positive image, or do you see a negative one? Well, there are many governments, other kinds of institutions, even parents who are afraid by those numbers. But I invite you to see incredible opportunity and potential of these young people who are going to be already making many decisions and are going to be making the decisions for their communities. So back in South Africa 5 years ago was a young woman named Angela who was afraid that she might not be able to stay in school and finish her high school because her parents weren't sure if they had the money to pay for their tuition. There was a knock on the door one day, and a representative from a girls' empowerment program asked to come in and to speak to Angela's parents, to tell her parents about the benefits of being in the program. Her parents let her in, and she explained that in this program, Angela would be learning about financial literacy and entrepreneurship and other kinds of skills. And her parents told Angela that she had their blessing to participate as long as she didn't fall behind on her chores. And Angela chose to participate. And in the Girls Empowerment Program, she learned the skills that her parents had heard about. She learned about how to start a small business. She learned how to identify where the gaps were in the marketplace so that her business would be competitive and fill a niche that wasn't already filled. And she also had the opportunity with the other girls in her program to walk into a bank and open a savings account. And Angela will tell you that this was one of the most incredible days of her life, because the only people who walk into banks are successful and important people. And opening a savings account meant that she went back there to this place of important people on a regular basis. She started a cell phone business, selling cell phone credit after school. And after 2 years, the savings in her account really began to add up. In fact, it added up so much by the time she graduated, she had an asset. She had all these savings, which was an asset, which meant she could apply for a loan and use that money to pay for the tuition in nursing school. So today, Angela leads a middle-class life, and she's giving back to the community that she came from by putting money to support other girls through their education and by being a peer educator. Now, like in the Choose Your Own Adventure books, let's imagine that we could flip back the pages and see what would happen if there was no Girls' Economic Empowerment Program, or if there was, but the program taught irrelevant information. Angela would be one of the 81 million people, one of the 81 million young people who would not have had the opportunity to start her own business. She would not have had the opportunity to probably ever walk into a bank in her whole life. She would be vulnerable to exploitation. She would be excluded from a quality-paying job in the global economy. And maybe she would be being coerced right now into joining some kind of armed gang. And at the very least, she'd probably be malnourished and continuing that cycle of poverty. So this brings me to another number, the number 1. And this is where all of you fit in. So why should you care about the 1.8 billion young people out there? What role can you play? Well, whether you're an environmentalist concerned about decisions being made about land and water, whether you're an economist or someone who's interested in making markets work and having communities and individuals be economically competitive, or whether you're interested in social justice issues and if people are getting enough to eat and if they're getting medical attention and if they have equal rights before the law, then you're probably caring about these 1.8 billion youth, or we need you to be caring and taking a role in the opportunities that they're getting. Because these people, these young people, they need financial services like being able to save money to build assets, having a safe place to save. They need access to credit at certain points in their lifetime. They need insurance. And it's possible to provide these services because there's a lot of different financial service providers out there. But the question is, what role can you play in having them care about the youth market, whether it's for social reasons or for business reasons? Young people need to be learning the services that employers are looking for in their employees who they're hiring. So they're not looking for people who have rote memorization. That day is over. They're looking for people who can problem solve and can work together. So we're looking at relevancy in education and access to relevant education. And young people need services that knowledge about how to offer services, either as an employee or as someone who's a business owner or as an entrepreneur, so that if they need to, they can create their own job now or in the future. The other key consideration for how to reach 1.8 billion young people is the power of convening, so that you who knows what's working in schools can connect to you who knows about how to get young people into savings programs. I learned about the power of convening 7 years ago when I was part of a discussion among some very prestigious organizations, very well-funded initiatives that was there to share information about how to begin to make a real dent in the lives of young people. And the kind of exchange that was taking place was actually quite disappointing, because the organizations that I knew about, the schools and the teachers and the funders and the financial service providers who were really doing great work, weren't part of the discussion, and I don't even think this group knew about them. And with my team at Making Sense, we wondered, well, what could we do to convene these actors together to be able to come together and form new partnerships? And we actually sat on that idea for about 2 years, because we thought, well, who are we, little Making Sense, to convene a global forum to address the issue of 1.8 billion unemployed young people? Well, finally, we had someone who came to us and gave us the push that we needed, who said, you have to set your vision bigger than anything you could ever achieve, and then go and achieve that big vision. Because you may come in underneath, but if your vision is this big, it doesn't matter if you only come in here. And so 5 years ago, we convened the first ever forum that brought together people from more than 60 countries, from all sectors, youth themselves. And coming out of this convening that we're now doing every year is incredible partnerships that are bringing technology from one part of the world to others, that are exponentially increasing the access to these financial services and skills that we've been talking about. So I invite you, in whatever capacity you're working in, to join the movement to help 1.8 billion young people, the future citizens of our villages and cities and towns and continents, to be able to choose their own adventures. Thank you.